Here are the sponsors for the video tour.
Our diamond sponsors include Farm Credit Canada, Meekeren Farms, Brenk Farm Nursery. Gold sponsors include BASF, Bartlett, the Nova Scotia Crop and Livestock Insurance Commission, Paul Lannan and RBC Dominion Securities, Scotian Gold, Truro Argamart, and V-Cross Nurseries. Our silver sponsors include Bear Crop Science, Bishop & Company, Corteva Agri-Science, Grindstone Creek Nursery, and Nova International Equipment. And our bronze sponsors include Cavendish Agri-Services, Eastern Drainage, Evans Manufacturing Company, Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board, Perennia, Provide Agro, TD Agriculture, Upper Canada Growers. And we also have a general sponsor, Adams County Nurseries.
Now we're just going to go to my office and we're going to have a panel discussion with a few growers. On the line with me, I've got 3 panelists who will introduce themselves.
Okay, my name is Larry Lutz. I farm in Rockland, Nova Scotia, on the South Mountain, just south of Berwick. We have about 130 acres of orchard, probably 120 acres apples, about 10 acres of peaches.
My name is Dave Power. I operate Power Farms in North Medford here in the Annapolis Valley. I'm farming about just a whisker over 100 acres of orchard.
My name is Andrew Bishop. I farm here in Greenwich, Nova Scotia with my family, Carolyn and Dwayne and some others. We grow mostly apples. We have 300 acres, and we're also working in peaches, pears, apricots, nectarines, and plums and cherries.
What have been the most significant challenges for your farm and how have you adapted? So first we'll go to Larry.
The most significant challenges, I guess, over the last 2 years are probably loss of income. We've had less than half a crop this past year and probably 2/3 of a crop the year before. And, with significant damage due to the freeze 2 years ago. Last year, the hurricane took off probably a good half of our crop, and it banged up what was left. So, in the age we're in an expansionary phase, we've doubled our acreage in the last 5 years probably. And, losing half of your income for 2 years straight has made, for certainly some significant head scratching, I guess, through the operation.
I could repeat and agree with everything that Larry has said, that I've had basically the same concerns here on this farm, except that we haven't doubled acreage in the last 5 years. We've increased some, but nothing like that. It's initially, I guess, for this year, I figured that I was very concerned with what the long-lasting impact from Hurricane Dorian would be, and I guess to date, I am pleasantly surprised that it appears to be rather minimal in the orchard compared to what I was thinking. The other thing is that I guess I've been very concerned since this coronavirus issue began about having enough labor, and that continues to be a concern, especially with harvest, in a month and a half, 2 months time. So those are basically the things I've been concerned with.
Larry and Dave's issues and concerns are exactly duplicate of mine. Change a few percentages on our losses. But in back in the freeze, what did I do? What did I adapt? Well, I think I had 11 guys thinning hard all summer long. And the last day they finished thinning was the first day they started picking apples. So it was a huge change. And, and then of course came the next year with the hurricane and the cooler, wetter spring. I think the two combined, gave the results of some very poor crop. And now, one other layer in my farm has been the freeze last winter. 30 years ago, we used to get some pretty heavy duty frosts or heavy freezes in February. Well, this year it came back and, my apricots are gone, my nectarines, there's no crop. I got half a crop of peaches. It's starting, those soft fruits are starting to have a significant, draw on our farm. So, that's been a concern. And of course, that was February, and then March came with COVID. And I can't overemphasize enough the COVID. We haven't, on the production side of things, COVID hasn't bothered us at all, other than we didn't get our pruning done. Our guys came in time. But our big concern is our local labor and getting our crop off. And I don't think we've even seen, we're not even at the end of the tunnel yet with that. We rely on both local and seasonal workers to get our crop off. And the problems to date that we've had in our retail side, in our processing with labor, if that translates into fall harvest, I'm in big trouble.
So have any of these challenges increased the risk of an existing problem like fire blight on the farm? So first we'll go to David.
I mentioned fire blight, and yeah, that has. I had fire blight, I thought, pretty well under control after about 8 or 10 years of dealing with it until last year's Hurricane Dorian. And of course, in my books, it was too cold to have an infection period. I didn't realize that even as cold as it was, there was probably some level of bacteria still around. And I had a few typhoid Marys and a few Gravensteins, and not too far away was some young Galos, a nice planting of young Galos, 3 years old. And bingo, I've got some fire blight in there. It's manageable, but I will lose, I'll probably lose a few trees, and it's still there. We put a bit of extra apogee in there to try to mitigate it, and it's manageable, but it's kind of disappointing. So that was one of the things. And the other thing is I'm very concerned with the labor thing. Has been mentioned. There's so much that's out of my control to get harvest help and to get help here, and that's my big concern is harvest help. I have two out of 4 guys right now, and we will need 20, and I don't know how many of those I will get, but it's out of the control. It's in the hands of the Mexican authorities, the Canadian authorities, and nature itself, and of course the airlines are playing a big role in this as well. The airlines are having troubles and struggles, and so those are things that I have been dealing with.
I will comment on this year's new plantings. Over the last number of years, we've had 99 to 99.5% success rate with young orchard, with tree viability. This year, for some reason or other, whether it's peaches, whether it's apples, it doesn't make any difference. Our mortality in our first year and first 3 months is much, much higher. And I haven't got an answer for it, but I know it's a concern that I've got to look at and see where are these issues coming from. We do, I've been planting trees for over 50 years, and this is probably the worst year ever for success rate in getting young trees moving along, growth, plus keeping them alive.
I'm talking about fire blight in particular. Where we are, we're relatively isolated. I'm in one of the highest elevations, I guess, in the valley growing trees. And after Hurricane Arthur, we were one of the very few orchards that had hardly any fire blight. We had half a dozen trees that I cut down and took out, and we didn't have any more. And we are brutal on fire blight on this farm. Is that if we see a tree that has a strike, we cut the entire tree down, take it out. I mean, most places can't do that, but we were fortunate enough at such a low level of inoculum. So on the home farm here, there's basically no fire blight. And after the hurricane last year, we waited with bated breath, but we didn't have anything show up here because I don't think there was no inoculum to start with, so that's why we got off. However, we grow our own nursery trees, and we had a nursery in the valley with probably 25,000 trees in it, I suppose. Another piece of property we have, and unfortunately, there was fire blight in a couple of the orchards around it. So anyway, post hurricane last year, and this was getting late. Almost the trees were setting terminal buds. In fact, they had set terminal buds. We were starting to find some fire blight. So we probably rogued out 500 or 600 trees out of the nursery in one structure across the center of it. So I had to make a decision what to do this spring. So we went through everything, and we didn't find anything that looked like a canker or whatnot. So we dug it all, and we planted in the new planting. We planted them anyway, and we'd walk the orchard or drive the orchard every 2 days, and we've probably pulled out another maybe 100 trees out of the new planting, but we haven't found any for the last probably close to a month. So we think we're fairly lucky. So yeah, fire blight was one of our biggest terrors. We don't have it and we don't want it. The other issue, of course, is labor, as Dave and Andrew both said. And in our case, I guess we're probably fortunate from the standpoint that we've traditionally used the Jamaicans, and I think that the situation with the Jamaican consulate and the interaction there is a lot better than it has been with the Mexicans for this year. And we got our help a little bit late, but we managed to get all our pruning done. We just got another fellow in this week. The quarantine thing is very onerous, but it's working. We use the facility at Cornwallis. Our plans are the rest of the crew, if nothing goes wrong between now and the 1st of August, we should have almost enough help in by the end of August to harvest our crop. But again, that relies on the fact that this thing stays quiet and there's no more upsurges. So I'm really quite happy that we were using the Jamaicans this year. And that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the Mexican labor or the whole program, but it just worked out better because of the low rate of infection in Jamaica, I think. So still some long-term issues with trellis. Once a trellis starts to move, it's hard to ever get straightened back up completely. So we still have a bunch of anchors and poles to drive, which we are doing this week. And so yeah, we're still recovering from that standpoint.
And Larry, have you changed any practices in tree nurseries to mitigate that damage that you mentioned with fire blight?
We use low rates of copper on the nursery, but the big thing we do is we walk through, and if any tree looks unusual, we rogue it out, or we pull it out and get rid of it. Whether it has fire blight or whether it has something else, I don't care. If it's sick or it's around, it's time to get rid of it. You have to. I grow nursery with the assumption right off the bat that trees aren't worth anything. Because if you value every tree at $10 or $15, when you're walking down through that nursery, you're not going to pull one out. But to me, it doesn't bother me in the least to reach over and pull out a tree and throw it out in the laneway. And you have to do that if you're going to grow, if you're going to be successful growing trees, or else you're going to spread a mess out into your orchard. So that would be the main thing that we've done, I guess. Otherwise. No, we don't do things a lot there. We control insects, but we always have. So I make sure there's no sucking insects that will spread fire blight. And again, we use low rates of copper, but not regularly.
Andrew, when fruit quality was affected by the freeze or wind, did you find any new opportunities for the farm market?
We had a lot of drops in the ground, and we partnered with one of our cider makers, and we made a hurricane cider. Now, mind you, it only used up a small portion or tiny portion of what was done for damage, but it's amazing. We found instant success in the marketplace because most of our cider drinkers from Halifax, they were out of power for a week. As soon as this type of thing hit the news, you bring a new product to market, and you've got a year or 2 years before you can go anywhere with it. Well, the hurricane brought this down to every household immediately, so it was quite a success. We're playing with some other things with processing. I'm doing some fruit leathers, and the apple is a large component of a peach fruit leather or a strawberry fruit leather. The apple juice that we have put in it is 90%. We have to do that because of just the way of the flavor and the quality and so on. So we've done that, and we've done some drying. The drying is a little more difficult. It sounds good, but this year with the hurricane and the apples that we had to use, and then COVID came along, and what COVID did was just totally revolutionized our whole processing. The distancing that we had to do, a huge cost in everything from bagging our apples to tray packing our apples to doing any further processing, to the point that it doubled our cost. It made it there's no margins in them. In fact, we raised the price of apple chips, for example, by $2 a pound, and still not breaking even with the extra cost of just handling that sort of thing. So yes, there's an opportunity. It looks great on the outside, but when you get inside doing something and making economic sense, there isn't any. So, which I should comment, labor, of course, is the biggest thing with COVID. We had to reduce not from the production side of things, but from the processing and retailing side of what we're doing. We rely a lot on local people. And that has just been a nightmare from day one, from education to people being scared and, seasoned, skilled people in each regard gone, and trying to find replacements. We had to reduce our hours in our farm markets because we just couldn't get the people to cover the time. And on the flip side, of course, with all the rhetoric around COVID, certainly consumers are taking a lot more intense interest in local. So it's basically on the good side, it's made us a little busier in our farm markets.
And David, what kind of new practices are you implementing in new orchards now?
Standard stuff would be like trying to plant in the immediately new orchards, trying to plant the redder strains of Honeycrisp and more Gala. I have very few Gala on this farm, and everyone tells me to plant more Gala. There's lots of demand for Gala, so we're trying to do that, but that's that takes a bit of time. When I'm putting up the trellis system in the past, we would, if they putting a post in, if the thing got down 36 inches and hit a rock or something, well, you said, okay, that's okay, we just leave it. And now I'm trying to make sure those things are in, the 48 inches, and if it won't go in, we move it. Try to pull it out and move it a few feet, or take another one and put it in and deal with that the other one later, and try to make sure they're in the 4 feet. And anchors on the end, I have seen a lot of them mowed off with orchard mowers. The wire would be so low that the orchard mower would catch the wire and mow it off, and you got no trellis system. So I have, over the past number of years, elected to put those anchors a little high so the wire would be above getting caught by the mower. And now I have abandoned that process because last fall there was a few of those anchors that breached in that heavy wind. So we're putting the anchors, making sure that anchors are down the 48 inches that they're designed for, and trying to put a guard post in there so that when I'm mowing or someone else is mowing, they don't snip the wire off. So those are things that I've been trying to do with the new orchards. And like Larry says, someone goes through those the younger stuff, and where there is some fire blight present every 2 or 3 days and tries to deal with it. I don't know if I'm as aggressive as Larry, but yanking them out and throwing them out the laneway, but I am trying to cut them well back, if it's a 3 or 4 year old tree, cut it well back. And in the end, I usually have to succumb and pull the thing out. So maybe I should listen to Larry a little more often.
Going back to Andrew, how has the farm market had to adjust during COVID-19? Is there anything specific you want to add?
Well, I mentioned earlier, we've had to reduce our hours. There have been a lot of staff changes because of fear. Our displays in our farm market, we made them smaller and a lot more space. Thankfully, I have a fairly large area in a new facility there at the farm that I can do that. But it is keeping everybody safe. It's about making sure the rules are followed, and when you get a number of people with different ideas, it's a big challenge. It's more policing. I will say that we do some things with in farmers markets. They were closed for a while. We had a small online system working before, so it was very easy for us to move into more online activity, and it flourished. We've had to hire some more people, local people, to help us out with that. It crested. some time ago, especially when, you know, a lot of fear in late March and in through April. But people want to get out. They want to see, feel, touch. And that online business is still there, but it's certainly dropped. So there's been a change in retail. We've started back now with some of our local produce in the farmers markets, but it's a very slow build. We're about 50% of where we should be there. But we get a lot of customers coming and really appreciating, I think, more than ever, where the food comes from. And I think we're going to be in for some challenges, a rough road along the way. But I think us as farmers and food providers, we're going to be in a heck of a lot better position than you know, other industries, other trades.
And Larry, I know you've mentioned farm labor, but can you give any more details about how you're managing it during COVID-19?
As far as managing labor, quite honestly, it's not a lot different than what we normally do. We are very fortunate in that we've had the same crew now. Some of them have been back here for 12 or 15 years. We have one gentleman who takes the lead on things, and he has for a number of years. So the rest of the guys, quite honestly, they're terrified of this COVID thing. And, you know, some of them were almost hesitant to come up here, but they knew that, you know, on our farm we're isolated, and they felt themselves being safe. So the shorter answer is we don't do things a lot different, other than the fact that, you know, our guys, they don't go to town, maybe once every 2 weeks to get groceries. You know, we shopped for them when they initially came here. You know, we utilize all the quarantine services, so we do all the paperwork correctly. Like, we follow things to a T. My wife Janice actually follows things to a T. I stand back and watch what goes on, actually. But anyway, no, no, it hasn't been a significant change for us. Once you accept the fact that you can't get off the farm really for any leisure activities, and that, you know, our work day, we're very, very isolated. People don't come and go. I don't go anywhere. The help doesn't go anywhere. So no, it's been fairly as easy as it could be for us, I guess.
And were your workers sewing masks? I think I saw a photo.
Yeah, in isolation, we have one of our guys was actually a tailor back in Jamaica. So he made I don't know, 60 or 80 or 100 masks and gave them out to people in the community. The people in the community would drop off baking, and they'd trade these masks for them, and he gave them to other workers right in the area and gave it to all of us. And yeah, it was pretty cool, actually.
And David, do you have anything to add about labor?
Well, we got all our pruning done here this year, but I did it in the absence of any offshore labor. And as difficult as it seems to be to hire new local people, if not impossible to hire new local people, what I have to take my hat off to is people that have worked for me in the past that are retired or are in semi-retirement. And the commitment that they made to making sure that we got the pruning done. And lo and behold, some of them are still here this summer, operating significantly on the farm, you know, doing the spraying and a lot of other important tasks on the farm, maybe not 40 hours a week, but as needed in the absence of this offshore labor. So I have to take my hat off to those local people that realize, you know, the significance and the importance of trying to operate a farm.
Thank you. Is there anything else that any of you want to add?
I think that Perennia and our Department of Agriculture has done a lot to help smooth out the process of getting some of our seasonal workers here on a timely basis. And I think we need to, I feel, especially for me, we need to recognize that. And I think that's, you know, great thanks to them. There's been a lot of time put into that. So